9 times out of 10, when we talk about holidays in Australia, you would think of the Great Barrier Reef, the Sydney Opera House, maybe Uluru, maybe Rottnest Island, and the list goes on and on. But what about Tasmania? Is it worth going to Tasmania? Well, I'll tell you that in this video because I went with my family for 1 week. We had a fantastic time and I want to break down all the reasons why it may be worth going to Tasmania on your next Australian holiday. Let's go. Good day everyone, welcome back to the channel. In case you're new here, my name is Emilio. I am an English teacher and I help students with IELTS and PTA preparation for all their purposes in Australia. And I am also a Spanish translator. I am NATI certified, so whether it is visas, unis, or anything related to documents that need to be translated, I'm here to help you. If you would like more info, just check the first link in the description down below. In this video, I want to tell you everything about my Tasmania trip, some reasons why I think it is worth visiting and other reasons why maybe it may not be worth visiting. We'll talk about everything and I've put timestamps in the video down below so it's easier for you to skip a section in case you want to go specifically to one part or another one. And well, without further ado, let's begin. The very first question you might be asking is, Emilio, teacher, why Tasmania? And that's a really good question. Actually, I went to Tasmania around 5 years ago, and to be honest with you, it was a very short trip. I think we stayed there like 3 nights, so everything was really cramped. We didn't have time to relax, to go around and explore. And Tasmania is well known for nature, for hiking. So a part of me thought, okay, now with a baby, we're not gonna go hiking and this and that, but we may do a few hikes, we may go and explore, we could do a lot of driving. I also chose Tasmania because I live in Melbourne and Tasmania is probably really close, you know, in terms of a flight. As much as I want to go to Perth, Darwin or other parts of Australia, sometimes just the fact that you have to fly for 2-3 hours, especially with a baby, I thought maybe it's going to be better if we just go somewhere that is not so far and maybe somewhere that we haven't been there before. We did go to Tassie before, as I said, but I wanted this trip to be an opportunity for us to explore more because Tasmania, like everywhere in Australia, is really big. The first reason why I think Tasmania is worth visiting is because of the road trips and nature. On my first day, I was just so shocked in a good way by the beautiful roads. It literally felt like I was in New Zealand, but in Australia, if that makes sense. Tasmania has got something. It resembles a bit New Zealand. I'm not saying it is exactly the same, but it is just incredibly beautiful nature. It is just outstanding. In Victoria, where I live, it's very flat, and normally to go from one place to another, you have a straight line and then you're on a highway for 1 hour or so. But it's all really flat, you don't see changes in the scenery, whereas in Tasmania there are lots of changes, rolling terrain, up and down. You have to maybe take a few more turns in between different destinations, and the view is incredible. So there were times where a part of me was thinking, oh my God, we are not doing anything. We're just doing a bunch of driving. But that driving was incredible. It was really, really nice. So even though it may feel like, oh yeah, just driving, etc., I think that even just driving around Tasmania, it's part of the whole experience. The second thing has to be nature. If you are someone who really enjoys nature, whether it is just, as I said, landscape, beautiful views, maybe you just like going on trails, hiking, mountains, Tasmania is the place for you. Also, we did go to a sanctuary and we got to see some traditional or some native animals of Australia, I should say. Things like kangaroos. There was my favorite animal, I'll tell you in a second. The wombat was there. We also saw a quoll. I really, really liked that one. It's probably my favorite animal. And it was really nice because this is a sanctuary, so it's not like a zoo. It is a different zoo experience where basically people are taking care of animals and it is a more relaxed atmosphere. It doesn't feel as commercial as a zoo. There are some tours. We couldn't go to the tours, but it was nice just to spend some time, walk around. We actually had delicious hot chocolate with Tasmanian pepperberry on our way there, or sorry, when we stayed there. So yeah, it was really, really good. When it comes to also nature and wildlife, Obviously, I have to mention national parks. So we did go to Fresinet National Park and we went to Wineglass Bay. And Wineglass Bay is probably one of the highlights of the trip. I think that that is probably one of those places that I said, let's go to Tasmania. We're going to stay close to Wineglass Bay and then let's just go there one day and then basically explore other days. And the other one has to be Bay of Fires. It was incredibly beautiful. It is actually fun fact, the stones that you see there in, or the rocks I should say, in Bay of Fires have got this particular color, not only because of minerals and magnesium and whatnot, like it is in Uluru, right? That it has that distinctive color because of minerals. But this time I thought it was that, but it turns out it is minerals plus like a kind of algae, like seaweed, a special type that is only there in Tasmania. And this is why it is very special. And that day actually was just a lot of driving into mini spots, walking around, finding a spot where we can walk for at least an hour so that my son could sleep. It was just really, really nice. Second, the food. Tasmania is well known for its seafood. So whether you live in Melbourne or somewhere else in Australia, you might have seen already that there are Tasmanian cheeses, smoked salmon from Tasmania, and basically any seafood in Tasmania is delicious. And I just come here to tell you that if you enjoy seafood, if you like also dairy, I feel like seafood and dairy are so big in Tasmania. I'm going to include honey as well, because there are so many options for going to farms. There are wineries as well. Well, we didn't go to wineries, you know, for obvious reasons. But also, when it comes to just seafood, there are many places where you can have delicious fish and chips, oysters. Oh my God, the oysters in Tassie, incredible. And seafood as well. We did go to a place called Lobster Shack, and it was like a wide variety. We actually got ourselves the seafood platter. It was really, really good. We also went to a farm. It is called the Piengana Farm. And to be very honest with you, I'm a bad Latino. I don't eat too much cheese, but going to the farm and trying all the different cheeses, it was just really nice. We got a cheese platter, incredible. We actually bought some fresh cheese to have that as a souvenir and some other margarines and marmalades that they made. In general, it was really, really nice. And even the drive to go to these places, it was really, really good. Now I have to tell you about going there with your family or going there with your baby. Obviously, if you're going with a baby, I would highly recommend that you plan whatever activities you're doing around the nap time. Because if you're a parent, you know that babies, if they don't get their sleep, then it's going to be a complicated night. I'm sure you know what I mean. With that said, I think it is a doable destination with a baby. There are some other parts of Australia or other things that I wanted to do. And I remember my wife telling me, maybe no, let's go somewhere a bit more relaxing because that will be hard with a baby. Maybe it is too hot, or maybe that destination where I wanted to go includes like a long drive, long distances, whereas Tasmania was that sweet spot for us. So definitely recommended if you are going with a baby. Now, you may be going by yourself or with your partner, and that is totally fine. Again, as I just told you, if it is okay with a baby, it is going to be totally okay, whether you're going by yourself, with your family, and also with your partner, you know, with your significant other. For the next part, I have to tell you all about the big surprises from the trip. Okay, the first one is that people from Tasmania are so friendly. It was crazy that anywhere we went, people would ask us where we are from, whether it is from our country or different parts of Australia, and it was just a very friendly atmosphere. So I feel that going as a tourist, it is really good. And on top of that, I think it was particularly interesting how, maybe this is because I was in the East Coast most of the time, but I found that there are so many opportunities for us to listen to like the Aussie accent, so there was a lot of yeah, good eye, mate, so a bit more difficult, you know. So I think like, okay, maybe if I went when I was a student, it would have been a bit harder than maybe going somewhere in Melbourne, but it really depends. But all I'm saying is that I heard more of that Aussie English, which it was a nice thing from the trip. Also, surprisingly, cafes were amazing. We were doing lots of mini coffee stops along the way, stopping in different cities, sorry, different towns, not cities, and every town had something. Maybe it was a good bakery, it was a good cafe, maybe a good restaurant. There was always something. Maybe there was a souvenir shop, there was some local produce there. It was so nice. And I think that people from Tasmania are really like proud of being from there, because so many times they would say to me, oh yeah, I'm from Tassie and I've lived in the mainland, or I've lived in Melbourne, I've lived in Sydney, but then I came back to Tasmania, I really like life here, and now I'm doing these activities, or like I work at this shop and I'm, you know, telling people about this island. So I feel that maybe for them is like there is that sense of pride, friendliness, and I think the easiest way to explain how Tasmania felt, in case, you know, we always talk about like Tokyo and Sydney being the same, or like Osaka and Melbourne being the same. I feel that Tasmania is like the Hokkaido of Australia. It's like a bit more relaxed, a bit colder, like a slower pace of living, but all in all, an incredible place. Another surprise, and it is really important to plan this, is that because I was used to life in Melbourne, where I could go to the supermarket at like, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m., 11 p.m. even, right? In Tasmania, it's not like that. Maybe in Hobart and Launceston it is, but where we were staying outside of the main cities, oh my God, there were some times where that was a bit of a shock. It would be like 7:30 and I say, oh, no worries, let me just quickly go to the convenience store, and then, or like the local IGA, and then boom, everything closed at 7. Even restaurants, and even during the week, there were times where there were very limited options. So it is something to keep in mind in terms of your planning, whether it is going there on, you know, on a long holiday or short holiday. Regardless of where you're going, I feel like it is important to consider that that places do close a bit early. Let's talk about money. Tasmania was a place that I think if you go around August, which is when I went, it could be really good, because we got this deal where you paid for a hotel, you pay for 2 nights, but you stay 3. So that made the whole expenses in terms of staying, the whole accommodation, much more accessible. So it is a really good deal. I wanted to stay a bit longer, but you know, because of work, life, it was a bit difficult. What we did basically is go to Bicheno for 3 nights, and then go to St. Helens around Bay of Fires area for 3 nights, but we paid for 4 nights and we stayed 6. So if you ask me, I think it is a really good deal here in Australia. When it comes to the cost of the whole trip, if I have to, you know, summarize accommodation, if I have to include the car rental, because we had to rent a car, fuel, the cost of the national park, and also the plane ticket to get here, I would say it would have been around 2,000 to 2,500 Australian dollars. Let's say 2,500 Australian dollars, because I would rather tell you a bit more than a bit less, and then it's a big shock. But this obviously all depends in where you stay, and you know, which airline you take, and all that. Even the same thing with the car rental. You know, we got a bigger car for obvious reasons. We needed like the space for the baby. We brought more suitcases than we normally do. And then, you know, for the rest of the trip, when it comes to souvenirs, food, it really depends. You know, Tasmania is not like super cheap, it's not super expensive. So this is somewhere where, depending on your budget, you can really work your way around it. What we actually did was to have that midpoint where we would go to a local IGA, get a few things. One of the places where we stayed, I could cook. So we basically did a bit of cooking just to, you know, balance the price. But also, we also did go to cafes, we went to some restaurants. So I feel like when it comes to the other part of the costs of the trip, whether it is souvenirs, food, etc., that's where you can really, you know, play around it, and you could spend as much as you want or as little as you want. So the fixed cost of the trip around $2,000 to $2,500, and I feel that it is an amazing value for low season, or when it is not as busy. It would be ideal to go, because there were some places where I could imagine maybe having a bit of traffic. The roads were basically, for us, it was just really nice going when it wasn't that busy, or maybe it's just me getting older, I don't know. To sum up, Tasmania is an amazing place. If you get the chance to go to Tasmania, please do yourself a favor and go. This is for you if you enjoy nature, if you're after something a bit more relaxed. It is a bit of a different side of Australia, in the sense that it is not as high paced as other cities are. So if you live in Melbourne, Sydney, or maybe you are from a country that is very high paced, you would enjoy Tasmania if you're after something a bit more relaxing. And talking about that, I obviously recommend Tasmania. You should go. But you may be wondering, how is it for international students? How is it when it comes to like migration, to move there? I answer that question in this video right here. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next video.